Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Matterall here with some special guests. We're going to talk about the war and what happened this week in EVE Online. Let's start with Caleb. How you doing, Caleb?
Hey, guys.
We also have Sutonia with us.
Again.
And our guest today, one from either side of the warring parties in Delve. We have Brisc from the Imperium initiative side.
If it's Sunday, it's Talking in Stations, and it's like deja vu all over again.
And from the other side, the invading side of PAPI is FC RonUSMC from Test.
So nice to be back and on camera. How crazy.
All right. Well, let's actually look at the news about what happened this last week, and then we'll talk about the war, and you guys can get us all up to date. So on Monday, the new quadrant was announced called the Foundation, and there's a few highlights in there. The ESS, the long-term banks are going to be opened and released. I think that might coincide with an event of some sort. So you might want to look out for that. Also, what was another big feature of Foundation?
Cyclavian stuff.
The Pochvin changes, which have been extremely controversial, especially for the folks that live there.
Also a bit shocking, right? Brisc, like, doors are open, come in. It's not even the ding dong dinner bell. It's like doors are open, everyone can pile in.
Yeah, it's apparently okay. So one of the problems is that Pochvin, which is this region that was created out of different systems in high and low sec, basically Empire space. These systems were taken over, 27 of them, and they created a whole new region that was connected. But the trouble with that region was, unless you were loyal to the people that kidnapped those systems, I don't know if I said stations, but I meant systems, you couldn't really move around very well. So you could be attacked by the locals who did have correct standing, and they could just jump to the next system. And if you didn't have the correct standing, you couldn't pursue. Or if half your fleet had the correct standing, half your fleet couldn't pursue. And so it kind of screwed things up. There wasn't a lot of combat or things that you could do.
It got to be a lot of trouble. I mean, the folks that lived there, they were riding high on the hog for quite a while. They had a region that they controlled. They had the only station, not the only station, the only player-owned citadels in the area, because you couldn't drop any. So only the ones that were grandfathered in were still there. They had access to all the stations, all the station services. And they had access to the jump gates, and they could get access to the home regions without having to use a filament. Now, there are ways to get around in Pochvin. You could use wormholes. There were filaments that you could use. But for those players that were there, they took the time, they ground the standings out, and it took a while to do that. Even the guys that managed to get it down to a silence, the Road Capel guys that came in, I think, a little bit late, it still took a solid week or so of pretty significant grinding for them to get the standings to be able to use the jump gates. And I think it was kind of stifling for folks being able to go in there. So in the effort to fix that, or at least make it a little more accessible to the average player, CCP decided to roll back the standing requirements on the gates. And that has caused a lot of consternation amongst the folks that live there, because they spent the last 5 or 6 months with these standings and doing all the stuff that they needed to do to get those standings and move around. And all of that work has been negated by the change. And then, of course, it's opened the floodgates, and a lot of people are coming in and taking advantage of the fact that this region has been kind of a hidden jewel in terms of ish generation and wealth generation for the last couple of months, and they're taking advantage of that now. So it's been controversial. I've heard from a lot of those players. They're not happy at all.
And also shocking, right? Because when we were covering this, we were expecting some sort of lowering, right? Just reducing it, but not removing it.
But also don't forget that a lot of that draw was them being able to rat in peace, right? And that kind of, it's that same sort of wormhole thing of rolling the holes constantly so they can be, there's no unconsensual PvP, right? So I'm very upset about that.
Ron, do you have a nickname for the Pochvin guys? Are they like Meerkat Light or something?
The Trig Meerkats.
Trig Meerkats.
And I think we're going to take a meerkat and put a little Trig hat on it.
Or you could introduce the Pikas, the actual real life Pikas. That would actually work.
Okay, so a couple other things that came in with the patch that happened the next day on Tuesday. That was a brand new interior to Jita, which looked fabulous. I think we showed it off. And also Aurora, not Aurora. That's CCP Aurora that I get her confused with, but Aura, which is your guide when you first come into EVE Online. And she's like fully animated. So that looks pretty cool.
And I think that's a solid addition for the new player experience. I think players expect that kind of stuff now coming into a game like this that is so graphically rich. They want to see something like that. And having a flat aura, I think, kind of annoyed everybody. So it's nice to have that in now, especially for the folks that are still in the early game that are looking at her. Us vets will never see it unless we roll a new character. So,
right. Okay, so
Yeah,
go ahead.
what we do with the tech too, because presumably now they can make like more NPC characters that are animated, right?
Well, that's the idea. We looked at the code, and there's some underpinnings there. According to Spod, did some searching around. There might be looks like underpinnings for more animations, and we were thinking in terms of mission agents may be automated.
I'd love to see all of that. Get the mission agents automated. Get any conversations that you're having. I mean, even when you're in space and the guys in local are talking shit to you, have a face pop up on your screen, and it's a guy in a Blood Raiders hat, telling you, "I'm going to come after you, noob," kind of thing. I think that'd be fun.
And they did promise us that it would eventually be a feature on our characters, right? In the Vegas presentation, when they talked about almost face rig overlay on our avatars. Right now, we can do our avatars as we have seen here when we run the shows, but we don't have facial expressions and we can't have faces animated.
All right, so Monday was the some lore events that were going on in space. The empires were kind of dread bombing each other. They were dread bombing planets. On Tuesday it was patch day. That was also the 4th of May. So may the 4th be with you. I know you guys hate that, but there it is. Then Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May, we had more explanations on attacks going on in NPC space. And then the 6th was the 18th birthday of EVE Online, since it started in 2003 and on that day. So here we are. EVE is 18. What do you guys think of that?
It's
Can
pretty
you
awesome.
believe it's been around this? We've been around this long. It's just it blows my mind that 18 years in, the game is here and still vibrant, and you still got this great community, and we're all together. And I mean, I don't know any other game, even World of Warcraft. People come and go, but there's nothing like EVE out there, and I'm just excited that we're all here to celebrate 18 years. I'm looking forward to celebrating 20 when we get in the 3rd decade. That's going to be cool.
Well,
a couple years from now.
I didn't get here to 2008, but I look at someone like Caleb who was here even before 2003. He's alpha or
my
beta.
My 19 is October.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
And I just want to ask, like, what made you play such a crappy game early on? Like, because it
was definitely not crappy when it came out.
It didn't get good until 2008.
That's not true. If you look at what was out and available in 2002, 2003, right? Your alternative was games like Earth and Beyond and Jumpgate. It's like nothing was as amazing as EVE Online.
Yeah, this was the new hotness, actually, from those games that were kind of waning.
Yeah, they kind of ended just before EVE launched properly, so we had a lot of migrants coming from exactly those games, which actually filled the server quite well early on.
I came from Star Wars Galaxies in 2006, so I mean that's pretty common.
Yeah, me too, actually. And so we went through a little bit of timeline for EVE Online and its eras. So you can catch that show May 6th. We talked about what CCP strategies were as they were building this game, what the population looked like as it was growing, what some of the spikes were, some of the valleys, and all that kind of thing. And then we talked on Friday about Delve heating up again, because it looks like, and this will lead us into our next section, the war, looks like things are starting to happen, whereas the last, week and a half has been a really huge amount of back and forth between the two parties and all those kinds of things. Let's. Do you guys have anything that you want to discuss that happened during the week? Not war related, but just EVE Online related.
The one thing about the quadrant is they were talking about fighting for gates, and they kind of alluded to the gate to stain. So I'm not sure what that's going to be about, or if different factions win, does it connect stain to, Caldari space, or
Better.
because it could be anything, right?
Well, I campaigned on a low sec gate to stain. I got to deliver on this one, like I did on the red dot. We got to make it happen.
Hey, don't do the Texas shooter fallacy just yet. I think the agreement is from the hobo analysis that I think there's 4 gates, right? And one of them is still this hobo troll thing that's most likely Fozzie or Rise that's just teasing us and leaving that April Fool joke in there.
I
Well,
say there's
yeah.
information on Hobo Leaks where there's apparently 4 gates that are going to be potentially added. I say potentially because there seems to be some sort of event tied to it. There's only one that has like any text right now, which is the Amar Gate. It says something like the Amar Gate to stain, and it says something about players need to support the NPCs in mining certain sites. I assume it's probably something like Resource Wars, where you mine and drop off resources to the NPCs. And like if enough players do it, then the gate gets built. If players don't do it, then presumably the gate doesn't get built, and then maybe some other consequence happens, like a Sancho wormhole or something. I don't know.
Well, I still dream that this is some sort of standing based reimagining of the old highway system. That it's something along those lines that we get. So it's indirectly going to be tied into the new player experience, so where people actually get dropped and also have an effect with faction warfare. That's my suspicion, at least.
I think CCP should just put like a ton of Amar diamond rats all over it. So if you have bad standings, you just die trying to take it in like a non-travel ship.
I think you're right on the money, though, Sutonia. It seems to me that it's going to be something of an event because I think the idea was that each empire would have an opportunity to build a bridge or not. And maybe they're taking a clue from Triglavian, the 3 Triglavian expansions. Are you going to help these guys do a thing that changes the landscape, or are you going to prevent it?
Yeah, it feels like Niaja 2.0, right? And it'll be interesting to see what the other gates are, because like the gate to stain is kind of obvious. I don't know like what they would do for the Galanti or Caldari one, because that space is already close to Empire, so there isn't like a super like obvious system that would like completely change the geography.
Well, if I recall correctly, there is one system for each of the empires that's classified as a trade hub, functional wise, right? So you can't actually drop structures. And my suspicion is that they will actually tie those into this gate system. And then to some location, I don't know exactly where, if it's going to be the same location, so like Ulay or similar, or if it's going to be an empire location where the new players are actually engaged. I think it's something along those lines.
Why would a new player go to stain though?
I don't think
Yeah,
the stain
I
is a
mean, the
hobo
worst
troll.
place.
It's not real. Seriously, Santonia, it's not real. It's not going to happen.
No one goes to stain.
I'm an
I'm not
experienced
saying
player,
anything.
and I
I'm
wouldn't
not
go to
saying
stain.
anything because I know what happens. NDA.
Well, you just said something.
I said something. That's it.
Come on, man. You're like one of those guys that says, hey, I know somebody likes you, but I can't tell you who it is.
You
Well,
guys
thanks
gotta
a
wait.
lot.
Read and find out. It'll be fine. The one thing I will say that I'm very pleased with is I think the Triglavian invasion content and the things that they did in the game made it possible. At least it made it clear that they have the ability to make significant changes to the geography of Eve, and that they're willing to make those changes. And I think that's interesting because one of the things it's been 18 years. The map now, who controls stuff in nullsec and who controls stuff in lowsec has changed, but the Empire side has not, and those borders have been static for a very, very long time, and the jump gates have been static. And I think when they did the change that pulled Pochvin out, and you lost Nyarja, you lost that link between Jita and Amar, and those types of things, that made a big difference. And I think people like that because it's interesting and it's different and it makes you have to reimagine what the world looks like. And I'm hoping that they do more of that. I'd like to see more empire-based stuff because I mean, frankly, these empires are supposed to be massive, huge, super rich, way richer than the Capsuleers areas, and they let us get away with bloody murder all around, all around New Eden and throughout their space. I'd love to see the empires fighting back a little bit, and I think that if you listen to what CCP Rattati and others have said on the various CCP streams and things like that, I think that's the direction that they want to take it, where they start fighting back more, and they're not going to let these big, immortal Capsuleers push them around anymore.
But Brisc, they only drop one Titan at a time. What is this?
They, maybe they got to build more. Not everybody can be goons and tests. They got to build their Titan fleets up. They let us get too big for our britches.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of that. Like, the whole ganking thing, and I think security should matter more. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the Empires kind of pushing back a little bit.
yeah, but I want them to push back a lot harder. Like, I want to see some gate camps. I want to see, the gate camps terrify players. I want to see
more gate camps. That's what we need.
I want to see NPC dread bombs. I want to see like somebody's out in a super ratting in Garista space and gets dropped by like a dozen freaking Blood Raider or Garista dread bomb. I'd love to see that kind of thing.
I love that. Yep.
Fight back.
More capital content. Love it. Love it.
Well,
that'd be fun.
I mean, I would talk about this during one of the shows in the week, and it was like, hey, I don't mind if CCP is the boss, right? Like, they come in and they kind of wreck stuff, especially when you have a lot of players coming to the system to work together on a thing. If it's a few guys roaming around and you jump on them and annihilate them, that's not so great. But if you have, that people are coming because you're televising it through stream, people are coming, they're going to get reinforcements, then make a show of it. Start wrecking people and have some fun, kicking some butt. And then it feels like, oh yeah, this was worthwhile.
And also, this would be kind of cool if it was the null blocks that actually third-partied, right? Because the Empires did something that would require big toys, right? And now we joked about the whole high-sec Sino, but it would be kind of cool if the Empires actually dropped a meaningful amount of Titans and the null blocks would have to choose a side. Are you going to go in there on one side or the other and then get a proper bloodbath, right? Because if you don't show up with the big toys, well, the Empires would just wipe all the other players.
That sounds like something fun for faction warfare to me.
Yeah, right?
Well, anyway, so some of these events, the Titan was dropped and the NPCs fought each other, and that was kind of cool. But there were also players roaming around and contributing. It took about a half hour or less for each of 4 or 5 different events on 4 or 5 different days to really get resolved by players. It was a relatively quick thing. If you heard about it while it was happening, you could possibly get there in time to shoot and collect some loot. What's interesting about the loot that was dropped by these NPCs is that it was little logs, and those logs could be turned into another NPC group. And if you turn those in, you got information back for the community of players about what was going on in the narrative of the story. All that is kind of neat. But it didn't last long. It was 30 minutes. Maybe that's long enough. I don't know. All right. Now let's go to a player versus player war that's happening in Delve. As you know, this started in July 4th or 5th, depending on when you mark time, of last year. It's been going consistently with some lulls, but lots of peaks for, 8 months, 9 months now. And the situation that we have at present is that the invaders of Delve have taken away one region in the north of Delve, one region in the south, one region of the east. So 3 out of 4 regions have been taken. The 4th region is Delve, has mostly been conquered. That was the stronghold of the Imperium. Imperium rendezvoused in 1DQ system, which is near I think geographically, the west part of it. So in that one system and constellation resides the entire strength of the Imperium. Not the entire, but the majority of it. they're also lashing out into other parts of space as well. That's where the war stands now. It is the siege on 1DQ. So let's talk about what that looks
Still
like.
not real Delve.
Well, where is real Delve? Let's start with
You're gonna have to go and look for it. It's secret. It's hidden.
it's in the hearts of men, right? Or something like that. Like,
Yes, it is. It lives in the hearts of men.
There's an answer I give in local, but I won't say it on the show because this is a family program.
And big
Okay.
points to Test for doing that meme thing, looking for real Delve. That was hilarious.
oh, the flow chart that says if you get
no,
this in,
the other one where you have to chase it with your mouse and you can't catch it. That was glorious.
all right. Well, there's two facets of war, maybe more, but one is what's on the ground, what's happening as the players are fighting, and two is what's being said on the media airwaves, such as here. Two guys that work in the media, of course, are Brisc and RonUSMC. So let's have a discussion with those guys about the war, where it's at now, and where they think it might go.
Matterall, could you just tell me when the losers are done talking and I'll speak up? I'm kidding.
Everything is kidding. So let's just take it for granted that you guys are going to be a little bit in character to represent your sides and stuff.
Well, we have to. I mean, you guys wouldn't want to watch it if it was us being straight. Who cares about that? That's not any fun.
Well,
You're not good at being straight, anyways, Brisc.
Right.
well, you guys both work like, again, showing your perspective sides. I think you work in a different way though. Ron is a streamer. He's out there showing what's going on. So there's a lot more. This is happening. You're seeing it happen. And then you get his descriptions, which I think are wonderful, in that he draws on the screen for you to show you on the map. Like these are, this is the story time, but with graphics and with visuals, which is,
I
don't
stole
think I've
his
seen that.
telestrator thing. He showed me how to use it. So I use that on the meta show sometimes now too.
Yeah, we're preparing to start doing that too, because
Yeah, and Matterall's getting ready to too.
There
I
you
love
go.
it. I think it's great.
Epic,
I love
the
it.
Epic Pen thing is amazing. So
yeah,
love
and we're not going to be as good as artists as Ron is, because he actually draws really well. So everything looks great, but it does help point.
Ron has
things
a
in
lot of
certain
practice
direction.
using crayons, so he knows how to draw. He knows how
Need to
draw.
get him
He's-
a Crayola sponsorship, right?
Well, he's basically giving us Eve Khan Academy. It's glorious. I love watching that and learning things that I had no idea how it worked. It's
Well,
really good.
I like what Plague says here. It's Madden in space.
Right, exactly. He pulls a John Madden. I love it with the telestrator. It's great.
Yeah.
Can we just also point out that I think Ron is getting really good at doing the bees. They are so nice.
So that's RonUSMC. You can catch his channel under that name, and you can watch him just about every day. He streams a lot during the mostly U.S. time zone. On the other,
Ron is the #1 Eve streamer right now.
That's correct. That is correct.
#1.
Number one.
I didn't know that. Congratulations. And that doesn't surprise me, but congratulations. On the other side of it is Brisc Rubal, who does more personality and entertainment and presentation of information on the Meta Show. But also you're around on other shows as well. But the Meta Show is your show.
The Meta Show is the flagship show on INN. INN is the Imperium News Network, and you guys, TIS used to be part of it back in the day. The Meta Show is the main show. We are the most watched Eve show, but we're only an hour. Ron goes 24/7, and he's got more viewers than anybody else. But I think for a single sitting 1 hour showing, that we are it on Saturday afternoons. So
the highest number of viewers. Yep.
Right.
I think
And frankly, we just
far,
talk. It's Matani and I, and we get out there and we try to have a good time, and we name call and play Schoolyard Bully, and we try to sprinkle in some good news and some information and some we'll have our finance guys on. We'll talk industry stuff. We'll talk what's happening in the game. We'll go over the MER. We'll have CCP guys on there every once in a while. But I think the big draw is just me and Matani, and we let that Fountain Frank guy come on every once in a while with his monkey, and he makes jokes, and we just try to entertain the troops every Saturday afternoon.
But what's the difference between the Fireside Chat, which happens today, Sundays, and the Meta Show?
So we kind of, and I have to say, we kind of, I think, when we started doing the Meta Show, we rebooted the Meta Show in November of 2019, and I took over as a co-host. And we started out, we had two ideas for the show. The main show would be the Meta Show, and then if we didn't have a lot of news and we just wanted to have a relaxed version of it, we would call it the Fireside Edition, and that was named after the Goon Town Hall that happens literally every week, called the Fireside Chat that Matani does. And prior to about a month ago, the Fireside would happen right before the Meta Show. So it would be 3:00 would be the Fireside. The Meta Show would be at 4. And then the rest
Eastern
of
time.
the day, Matani was doing, Eve meetings and everything. So Saturday got to be a very busy day for him. So we moved that. So we do Meta Show on Saturday. And now the Fireside Chats are at 3:00 on Sundays, 3:00 Eastern time. And I think that makes it a little easier for him, and it kind of balances his schedule out. But because we call one of the versions of the Meta Show where it's relaxed the Fireside Edition, I think sometimes people get confused, and that's probably bad branding on our part. I should probably fix that. But we have a nice little fireside background and stuff, and we sit there and make jokes and just kind of chill out and talk to each other. And we usually have Merkel, Chen, and Anominate on for that episode.
I think another important differentiation between the two is that one is for public consumption, the other is not actually supposed to be for public consumption. So when people get the SoundCloud of the Fireside, which is an internal talk amongst Imperium members themselves, right, and basically a morale booster and state of affairs, this is a completely different thing. It's very reminiscent of This Is Eve and This Is Really Eve, right? You're not supposed to get the bad comms, right? So I think that's important to point out.
And the Fireside Chat thing that Matani does is more, it's goon based. It's mostly goons, although Imperium can listen in. I try to listen in to see what he's going to say, but a lot of it is what they're doing, internal goon stuff, whether it's SRP, whether it's different SIGs and squads that are doing different things they want you to do, plans and doctrines to have, and that type of thing. It's a lot more in the weeds. It's the typical town hall that you would see. But of course, it's done Matani style, so there's always the bombast and the over the top, because people like that, and it entertains the troops while he's purveying the information.
Do people really like that? Like, honestly,
our guys like it.
Does it play well?
Like it.
Does it play well to
absolutely.
your audience?
I think so. I mean, I think if you talk to the average, there are going to be folks that are like, oh, I don't know, it's sometimes it's over the top. But for the most part, everybody recognizes that this is a kayfabe kind of Vince McMahon, bad wrestling promoter kind of guy routine, and it's part of the fun. It's part of the
But does that work with Imperium people? Do they like wrestling? Is that their kind of? Is that what they like?
I don't know if they like wrestling. I like wrestling. I don't know if they like wrestling, but I think they like the shtick. I think they appreciate that it's funny, that he's over the top, and that it's supposed to be bombastic, and he's supposed to be the evil space dictator, and I think that's the personality.
Yeah, but they're like elegant. There are elegant space dictators, and then
there are,
Vince McMahon. It's like,
for every Dr. Claw there sitting there stroking the cat, there's also the the crazy Different Sports Incorporated kind of guy that's just out there screaming. So
yeah,
it's just, when it comes down to it, I think people like that personality. They like how he's been doing it for a while, so that's what he keeps doing.
Now, both you guys have detractors. Let's talk about that a little bit. Suetonia, you're a streamer too, but you don't have any detractors. Everybody loves you.
Everybody loves Suetonia.
Everybody loves Suetonia.
I don't know about
I
that.
don't. I have a problem with Suetonia.
But you guys both have
Eva's easy makes me look bad. That's my problem with Suetonia.
You guys both have an issue that you have people who are rage watching you, right? That might be half your audience for the Meta Show, because it's 1,000 people, 1,200 people is way beyond normal viewing standards. So you definitely have some people that are there to watch you in the face of pressure, because the war's been going against your plans for the most part. And they're there to see how you're going to react this week against, the obvious, you just lost things. And then Ron, you have detractors as well that you don't tolerate at all. You just squash them and throw them out of your channel. So maybe you've lost about 500 viewers. Maybe that's okay with you.
And I love that. Yeah, I'm down with it.
So they can still watch, right? They just can't talk in your chat. So.
Yeah, they can still watch, but it's a lot of it is just cleaning up after Brisc, right? Like, like as soon as their show goes down, right, then I get all that fresh hot memes fresh out of the oven. It's like, how many times can you say PASPI in 4 minutes? Like, it was literally a jump bridge in null, right? We passed on it. They passed on 32 keep stars, but we're the PASPI. Like, all right, I got you, man. I got you. So, you know, I
Oh,
get it. I
is
get
that what
it.
PASPI
It's
means?
part
I
of it.
had no idea.
Yeah.
It was it came about from the one time that PGL decided and told everybody we're going to pass. We're not going to take this fight. This is how bad things happen.
Because he was
And
afraid
we
of
just took it
he was
and
afraid
turned it
of
into a meme and made a song about
yeah.
it, and it became the thing.
I
So
see. So I remember that now. I didn't know it was related to that, but he passed because he was afraid of server instability, which in
among other
retrospect
things.
is
They
smart.
had outformed us, but this is an unreinforced node, and this is how bad things happen. And one of our genius propaganda guys, Neolithicus, came up with a song about it, and it became this banger song that everybody loved, and we played it all the time. And I did a Fountain Frank thing of me laying there sleeping, waiting for Tess to do something, listening to that song, and it just turned into a meme. I mean, that's the one thing I think we've done pretty well during this war is we've done our best to take every opportunity we can to meme it up on the other guys, even when we're making fun of ourselves for losing stuff.
No, I get that, but I didn't realize because PGL had said, yeah, server instability. I don't like the way the server looks. We're not going to take this fight. And you guys are like, cowards.
Yep.
But then at M2, they had too many people, server instability, and it cost them dearly. And you guys are like, they can't win either way, it seems like.
Well, they can't. And part of the thing was that ProGod and others had been telling everybody from the beginning that they understood better than anybody else how the server works. And they always factored in server performance in all of their battle planning and how they were going to do things. And that was the biggest example of a miscalculation that anybody's made in the history of the game so far. So that I think for us, that was just, it was karma. It was just what happens when hubris gets the best of you. And we can't not, rub that in.
I mean, but it seems to me like what the meta show tries to do is to egg them on to bad decisions like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%.
And then when they do the bad decision, then you punish them for that. And if they don't do the bad decision,
it doesn't work. They know that it doesn't work.
No,
but it's fun to laugh at. But it doesn't work. No,
doesn't it work?
It sounds funny.
Does it work a little?
It does, because if you buy into that fallacy that propaganda hedging is, if you buy into it without thinking about it, then it does work, right? But if you think about it a little bit, you know that okay, they put it out there in the format which basically boils down to heads I win, tails you lose.
So no one's making decisions like in a silo. It's very much, hey, I have an idea, and then they run it past 3 or 4 people and they bang that idea around. It's not, oh golly, what is Reddit saying? No one gives a shit, right? It's 5 other FCs, and then other FCs come in and everyone kind of talks about it and validates the plan or whatever. So it's not a ivory tower.
Are all those guys though listening to the messaging coming out of the meta show or the fireside chats? Are they aware?
No, I think in passing, maybe like that. The one guy that does the TLDRs, some people will do that, but I mean, I don't watch it.
But again, if you buy the premise,
how dare
you're going to fail on it, right? But as most people know, there was a lot of chatter in Imperium after the whole pass thing, where most people said, yeah, that's actually the same thing to do, but that doesn't matter to the propaganda.
Well, of course, absolutely. I mean, we're not, listen, just because we tease you guys about it, it's not like that wasn't the right call. We pass all the time. As you noted, I mean, we pass when you're bringing 3 to 1 odds against the other side. Most of the time, there are going to be times when the guys are just going to say, look, we can go and try this fight and it's just going to be a feed, and what's the point? Or we go and we try to get the numbers a little bit even. But it's just something to meme on everybody, and it raises morale for our side, and you guys hate it, so of course that means we're going to do it more. And that's just the nature of being in one of these schoolyard fights on the internet, and it's part of what's fun about EVE, the back and forth and the propaganda that a lot of people. That's the kind of reason why they like to see these big nullsec wars, because you get to see the fun stuff like that, and it brings out everybody's creative juices to do funny stuff.
Do you have any statistics? Because you guys are big on statistics to back up that your audience actually likes the performance and the tone.
I think the
You mean
numbers,
besides the
right?
numbers?
I think the
Uh,
numbers.
My
yeah,
viewership numbers?
yeah. So I guess
that's it. I mean, that's the number one. I mean, listen,
people
when we
tuning.
we rebooted the Meta Show in November 2019, we were getting prior to the reboot, the Meta Show was getting about 300 viewers a week, like every other Eve talk show. And we slowly saw those numbers ticking up. We'd get up to 400, 500, 600 during a regular show. And then the war started. And the first week of the war, I think we had 3,000 viewers for the show because they wanted to see what we were going to do. And then from there, it stabilized, and we would get, I mean, on the big breaking news streams, we would get tons of people, like 5,000-6,000 people watching. When we did M2, when we did FWST, those INN streams were huge. But the Meta Show in general, I've been waiting for the numbers to drop, to be bluntly honest, because I didn't think we could sustain 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 viewers every Saturday afternoon consistently, even when we had nothing to talk about during the lulls. But it's stayed there, and that tells me that what we're doing, no matter how many people are complaining about it, that folks like it and they want to see more of that. And I find it when we don't do that, then we get yelled at. This is boring. Why aren't you guys doing the fun stuff? So we try to give the audience what they want.
This is also seen in the participation, right? How chat reacts, and it's not just on the Meta Show. It's actually also on Ron's stream. There's a lot of activity when there's a little bit of banter going back and
They
forth.
love it when Ron goes crazy.
And I'm a huge fan, as long as it doesn't go toxic. And I think Ron is actually pretty good at clamping down when it gets toxic. But when there's drama in there, it's really fun to hang out on that stream. Just gonna admit that.
Ron, can you speak to your moderation style? People have complained that you're just too rough on your opposition. You eliminate their voices from your streams, and therefore you are not to be watched because you're too one-sided. What do you think of that?
I wish I could eliminate them from my life, right? But that's the next step. We'll figure that out somehow. Maybe somebody will come up with something.
Well,
some people, honestly, some people don't deserve to have a conversation with other people. Some people were raised by goddamn wolves and have no social skills whatsoever. And
those damn meerkats.
Well, I mean, obviously, right, meerkats. But like the one thing, that there's every username is a person, right? So that's a person, like if you can't just be respectful enough that you're talking to another person, then you just don't deserve to be able to chat like that, right? Like there's no reason for personal attacks ever. It's all fun and games, and Brisc said this about you, and I'm like, I know, that's okay. Like it's fun. It's I get a kick out of it, right? Like it's not a big deal. But some people just cross that line. They don't know that line exists. You know what I mean? And they can't distinguish what's normal, reasonable, laughing chat. And this is why I love veterans, right? Like veterans kind of go back and forth all day and we're just laughing, right? But then somebody else, I'm like talking about the EU people and all their kings, and that's EU racism. Like what? Like it's just it's just odd. So I did that, and I thought that maybe I've over moderated, so I unbanned everyone and started fresh a couple of months ago, and I'm trying not to. I have Imperium mods and I have PAPI mods and a squirrel mod, so no meerkat mods, obviously.
Squirrel
no meerkat mods. Well, and Ron's point is spot on. It's hard sometimes, I think, for some people to tell the difference between what is supposed to be a joke and what is serious. And when people cross the line and just start going nutty on people, then I think we all stand up. And you guys have heard me say this multiple times. Like I remember in the big fleet fight where Ron lost his Titan, I told the guys on INN, I said, look, stop. Don't go over there and trash talk this guy. Leave him alone. And what I try to make sure, and I said it last week as well, we were talking about the Gobbins thing, was just don't cross the line, guys. You can talk trash and tease and have a good time and name call or whatever you want, but when it becomes like real visceral hate, that's not what we're about. We're not trying to. We don't want to get these guys all up here and start doing crazy stuff like doxing and DDoSing and taking stuff super out of the game. But a little bit of trash talk is fun.
I don't see
like
that.
you're playing football and
I
you're
don't see that in an obvious way. You do a little. I'll give you that. I don't see it in an obvious way. Both sides controlling their troll or animosity towards the other team. Am I wrong about that? Do you guys, Ron? Do you hold back test guys that are talking too much trash, or I guess Brisc just said that he will sometimes moderate or modulate or throttle some of the anger coming out of the Imperium. I've seen that happen a few times because I do see on both sides the cross infestation of rhetoric is pretty heated, I think. I mean, we even get some at Talking in Stations and we're not in the war. Most of the guys at TIS are actually Imperium guys, but we get a ton of blowback. Even on your last show, the Meta Show, you could see in the chat, they find ways to ridiculing Talking in Stations, which is fair game.
Testing stations.
Yeah, testing stations or yeah. So what do you guys think about your responsibility to keep a crowd from going overboard?
My take has always been, and I've said this before, I hold accountable the people that cross the line. It's at the end of the day, there's a thing called personal responsibility. We're all adults. We're all supposed to be adults. So if you're listening to somebody and they're watching a show and it's getting you up and you're all excited, and then you go and cross the line, it's not their fault that you did something stupid. You made the bad decision, and you should be the one that's held accountable for it. So that's what I tell everybody. Don't blame Matani. Don't blame me. Don't blame INN. Don't blame Ron. Don't blame any of these guys. Don't blame Gobbins. Whoever. Don't go and blame the guys at the top because somebody, some line member decided that they were going to take something way beyond what it should be. Put the onus on that person. They're the one that behaved badly. They're the ones that should be addressed. And that's how I try to do it. But at the same time, I recognize that as a Eve personality and as somebody that's out there, I have a responsibility to at least make it clear, guys, this is a joke. We're kidding. It's entertainment. We don't. When Matani says "eat my ass," he doesn't really mean eat his ass. That's not cool. He's trying to say saying something on purpose because it's supposed to be part of the shtick. So just try to remember that it's a game and we're all having fun and it's supposed to be fun. And if you're getting legitimately angry about it, get up from your keyboard, take a deep breath, walk around, sit down, and come back to the game later.
Yeah,
that's the best advice I can give anybody.
Ron?
Well, I mean, I have meta in the title now every day, so everything I say is fine. Like I can say anything I want.
That's your blanket.
Hippopotamuses, they don't even exist.
Letter arrives.
Yeah, they don't even exist, right? But whenever I see someone, it's difficult, right? Because I won't see it from the Imperium point of view of the weird toxicity. But I hold every time that I see anyone be actually toxic, like I talk to them immediately. There's a goddamn mobile depot with something harsh on it that I've already emailed the guy about, and I'm gonna talk to people about it because I hate that sort of level, of because I deal with it, right? And people will be talking about things, and I'm like, if any of you go to any Twitch stream and talk shit, like I'm coming after you, like, because I deal with that, and they come into my chat, and they see people calling me Nazi and all this weird shit. Like, don't make me get crazy on you guys, because I can control them, right?
You find it taxing then to deal with it?
Yeah, I ban the some bitches, but they still come back. But yeah, it's taxing as hell.
Yeah,
it's not to me, but I'm used to it. I mean, my whole life has been dealing with people like this. So you spend enough time in politics and you get a pretty thick skin, and it's just most of that stuff I just laugh about, and I try to turn it back on them because, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, everybody that hate watches my show, still somebody watching the show, and that's what I care more about than anything else. I want viewers. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put a product that people see, and if nobody's watching it, okay. So if you don't like what we're saying, but you still tune in every week, you're a fan, my friend. That's the definition of a fan.
Suetonia, you're a streamer as well. Do you have any thoughts on these sorts of topics? Do you deal with any of these subjects?
No, honestly, I don't really get a lot of toxic stuff in my chat for some reason. Like occasionally, like whenever I go like roam to an alliance's space, yeah, there'll be like 2 or 3 guys who will talk shit, but you know, it isn't really that bad. Like I've only ever had to ban like maybe 10 people total within like 4 to 5 years of streaming.
What
But
about Suetonia followers? Do they raid other streams? And
no, I don't think so. I mean, I don't direct people to target anyone at all, and I'd be really disappointed if people did that. So
yeah. Well, anyway, so the point is, because all 3 of you work in the media, and media is a big part of warfare and psychological warfare, as we tried to describe earlier, with pressure that you mount on other teams, and some of the undercurrents that these guys have to deal with, and stuff. That's all part of the war. But the other side of the war is actually what's happening on the ground. So where are we with the conflict in Delve?
Go ahead, Brisc. Go ahead. Brisc, you're muted.
The losers will start first, and then Ron can comment and tell us what's going on. I mean, look, from our perspective, what we have seen over the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago was the announcement from Gobbins in the town hall that they had reached the finals to the siege of 1DQ phase, of the fight, and that they were going to start increasing the pressure on us. And what we have seen in the last 2 weeks has been nightly or twice daily, depending on timing, attacks on the 3TAC-D system, which is connected via a jump gate in 1DQ. It's part of the 1DQ Constellation. It's the only Keepstar system left in Delve that's not 1DQ. So I think we have 6 total Keepstars left, unless I'm mistaken. And that is what we expect is they're going to try to push through that, take the rest of that constellation, and then 1DQ would be an island unto itself, and then they would start trying to come into 1DQ. So we've seen constant skirmishing there, a lot of like post downtime fights, and then we will see an EU time zone fight, and then we'll see a US time zone fight. And that has been pretty much the way we have seen things going on over the last 2 weeks. We had the numbers on the Meta Show yesterday. So far, the attackers, PAPI have lost about 1.2 trillion worth of stuff. The defenders, Imperium, we lost about 1.5 trillion worth of stuff, and that includes some structures that were in that area that were not defended. I think there were 5 Fortizars, a faction Fortizar, and a Satoyo that died. That added to those numbers. So if you take out those structures, the fighting's been kind of even. Where there's actually been fighting, it's been pretty even. But it's been hard fighting, a lot of hard fighting. That jump gate has gotten hit a number of times. It's been reffed a couple of times. We've saved it many, many times. They've managed to kill 2 passes and 2 offline jammers in 3TAC-D, but they haven't been able to do much more than that. They've dropped 5 Asbels in the system. 3 of them are still anchoring. 2 of them have been destroyed. 1 on the anchoring timer yesterday that was uncontested, and then 1 earlier last week. And I think that we're kind of at this point where this is going to be slow. It's going to be a hard fight because we're now at the point where we have all of our guys in one place. We can form very quickly. They can form very quickly. So what we're trying to do, at least on the Imperium side, is keep the pressure up, make sure we're still getting numbers of guys in fleets, and then at the same time, our outside groups, our other non-goons parts of the Imperium, whether it's Bastion or Init, we are trying to do our best to go outside of Delve to hit things, to make things inconvenient for the folks in PAPI and make them have to make decisions on whether or not they're going to jump Cloak. And that's what we've been doing for the last week or so.
What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, no, that's exactly where we're at. I mean, we have spent the past couple of months sort of burning the fields, right, around the castle. And we're at the castle gates now. And, a couple of weeks ago, we began probing, and checking the defenses. What about this corner? What about that corner? And, people have been trying out new doctrines. And I saw that they've been trying some new doctrines as well. I mean, this is very unique. You have 90% of nullsec living next door to each other. It's insane. Because guys can, you know, a new FC could say, you know, I want to take out some caracals, and now you're in the fight. What's up? You know, it's crazy. So it's been very, very quick and fast acting. So the intel is really, they pinged, now we need to react right now, right? So normally there was like travel time and we can see them coming, but now we're right next to each other, right? So they have 11 keep stars left, 7 systems, 5 keep stars in 1DQ, and then 1 in each of the other systems. So the 2 entrances to the
I forgot
Constellation.
about that. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
still have
that's
more.
what I'm here for, brother. So there's 2 entrances.
Not as bad as I thought.
1DQ, which is the front door, and then 3 TAC D, which the back door. And so we've been hitting both, you know, and lots of really good fights and putting down. And we put down a POS, and I was streaming from the inside the POS the other day, so it wasn't on tether, so it was substandard quality content, obviously, but I was still.
But
in
at least we
POS.
couldn't kill you, which is a change. So we like to shoot Ron. We shoot Ron a lot.
You did kill me, actually.
Did I kill you?
Yeah, and it did. I drifted out of the POS in my goddamn industry alt.
So I mean, to Ron's point, you know, that's it. We're at that stage, and the guys in chat it sounds like you're saying not winning fast enough. Well, I mean, no, this is a war. It's like a baseball game. You're losing until you're not. You're winning until you're not. And frankly, it depends on who you talk to. I know different groups in PAPI have different war goals. I think everybody wanted to take Delve and glass it, and I think they've been successful in that. So if that was how you viewed success, then you've been successful. From the Imperium side, we still control 1DQ. We still control 1 Constellation. Yes, it's a lot smaller than the space we had before, but we viewed this as a war of extermination. They're coming after us. They want to take everything we got and kill all of our guys and make us disband or do something along those lines. So as long as we're staying alive and we still are coherent, then we're gonna say that we're winning. I think that's part of the fun.
Can they exterminate Imperium if that's their goal?
If the goal, it depends on a lot of different things. I think if you put enough pressure to the point that the groups don't trust the leadership anymore, they think that they're better off going somewhere else or flipping sides, and you see corporations start leaving and alliances start leaving and the Imperium falls apart, that's entirely possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. We have seen that before in big wars like this, where the big groups just fail skate, and all of a sudden the war's over because those groups don't exist anymore. It's not the first time that it's happened. That being said, I think we have a pretty solid internal coherence, and that's why we've been able to survive as long as we have and fight as long as we have. I don't think anybody expected that the war would still be raging at this point now. I think everybody thought it would be like every other war in EVE, which typically was you have a month of skirmishing, there's one big battle, and then the war's over.
I don't think anybody thought that about this war, though, to be fair, because we saw an example of Legacy Fight Winter Coalition that went on for a year. And then we saw
the pace of fighting in that war was nothing compared to this.
But look at the infrastructure. The infrastructure difference is enormous. I mean, we're talking about like 4,000 structures, nearly 4,000 structures in the empire of the Imperium. There is nothing like that anywhere.
And how many groups could withstand losing 3,900 of those 4,000 structures?
None.
And still be here to talk about it.
None. This would have pulverized many groups over and over again. It is impressive, but to say that this war should have been over by now, I think doesn't account for critical thinking about what is there and how long we've seen wars take recently.
But I don't think any of us knew the numbers involved. Like this is totally new, and in the very beginning, I even said, I think something major will happen by Christmas. Remember? And then I was like, oh, we picked up the pace. I'm like, maybe Thanksgiving. Yeah, no, this is summer. We're here now.
I mean, Villian folks are saying it's going to take another 3 months to 8 months to take 1DQ. I think it's going to take forever, but that's just me.
Yeah, or longer. I've heard another year from Kenneth that one time he appeared. But I think I think there's a couple things going on here, if I could be frank. One is it's not in anybody in PAPI's advantage to put a date on something, because the closer you get to it, the more pressure there is to quit because you didn't make your date. So
Absolutely.
I could see why they want an open-ended, we're always going to be friends, we're always going to attack the Imperium, don't look at the clock. That's not what we're going by. On the other hand, Ron, how long can you sustain, can PAPI and Imperium, PAPI and Test sustain these kinds of time commitments?
Yeah, forever. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is super fun. We have our, space back here that people can take a break at and do industry and mining, and then you clock in, you go kill goons, and then you unclock like Fred Flintstone.
Right? He pulls
yabba dabba do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what? But I'm
Your jump clone is your
Yeah.
your little punch card.
Well,
and are your
I
guys?
think-
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
Ken.
just gonna say that I honestly think that Ron is partially right. This is like a castle, right? You've surrounded them, and then you're just clocking in to keep that thing locked down, and it's almost like locking real Delve or the Imperium proper out of the rest of the game, because we're seeing that the rest of the game, if you compare to something like, I think it's uh, Mangoes and Frat, that usually are enemies. Well, they're collaborating in Delve, but outside of Delve they don't, and something like this could emerge for the rest of PAPI. So breaking up that blue donut thing a little bit, because as long as they can keep the siege running, then that's fine. It's almost like denying goons the ability to play the game. Of course, you can say, well, doesn't that get boring at some point? Well, not if they have the manpower and can clock in and out, right? And then goons are doing something similar with VPNing out with all their alts and stuff, right? So maybe that stuff inside Delve proper is locked down and not part of the game, but everyone is still playing, and I think that's very much also why participation numbers remain high on both sides. They keep talking about, well, and Brisc does this whole look, it's going up a little bit, and this is going down a little bit. But when you're averaging out the graphs, it's completely flat. It's like everyone is still playing and having fun.
I think if you're in the middle of a mission and there's a, hey, get in here quick, we got to do this thing, you're kind of like, oh, come on, give me a break. I'm not showing up to this one. Like, there is a deteriorating effect to starting to play somewhere else. You might actually like it. You might say, you know what, I want to do missions this week. I'm not showing up to the war. Do you guys find that's
and
happening?
part of the thing is, I mean, how many times can you see, 7, 8, 9, 10 rage pings in a row? Get in fleet, get your ass in fleet, get the fucking fleet. You got to get in fleet. Come on, get in fleet. And then you get in fleet and nothing happens before you start saying, well, maybe they don't really need me this much this time. I'm going to go stay where I'm at, or I'm going to, finish what I was doing. And I think that takes a toll on both sides. I think it's common for both sides.
I
But that's
wonder
one
if
of the reasons why we're trying to go up north and at least in the initiative, when I say we, trying to go up north and hit the folks that have not been really hit in a while. I think we've hit a lot of legacy space. We did a lot of hard work in impasse and catch, but we didn't do that stuff up in PAPI is at least the PanFam side has not had that kind of an impact. They haven't seen that kind of fighting before, so now we're going up there to hit them.
So, Tony, how long would you last in a war like this?
Oh, I mean, I would probably just do something else after 3 months because I'm notorious for core
like to change
popping
it
and
up.
stuff.
Yeah, you like to change it up. So, Ron, again, you think, I think that saying that you love it, I think I hear that a lot. That to me kind of strikes me a little as happy talk. Are you guys really having such a great time that you could sustain this for another year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. It's interesting. It's new. Like, I think it's always important to put in perspective on what it was like before this, right? So, before this, it was just defense fleets, right? And defense fleets in it hitting us twice a day, goons hitting us 2 or 3 times a day. It's just like over and over. And then farming, and that's why, starting the war, it's like we might get evicted to low sec, but anything is better than this. What we're just sitting here and, filing, political things, right? Like diplomats and all this nonsense. Like, at least we're fighting, we're having fun. Yeah, we get dropped on. Yeah, people, we get cloaky campers everywhere. Yeah, whatever. Still better than what it was.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Go ahead.
I got to get out of here, but I wanted
Yeah.
to say Happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Yeah.
And if your wife or your mom is out there, make sure you give her a hug and be nice to her. I'm going to go be nice to my wife now because I already took an hour and a half to come on the show and hang out. So when I should have been with her anyway. So
thanks,
my
Brisc.
bad.
Thanks for coming around. Happy Mother's
All
Day
right.
to your wife. All
Bye,
right,
guys.
see you guys. All right. Well, we're all really close to wrapping up anyway.
I was just going to segue a little bit on the last remark that Ron made, because he mentioned cloaky campers, and
Yeah, that's
allegedly we're supposed to get some sort of fix for this. How could that, do you think, change what would be going on during the war, right?
I think it'll change it, much more than storms, right? So storms did have an impact because the electrical storm did go right through T5 and 1DQ where we couldn't cloak. And that was noticeable, right? That was noticeable. The propaganda people weren't sitting in, local. That was one. But, I think not being able to cloak or whatever the fix is can change a lot of things.
Do you think it's good or bad? And who do you think is going to come out benefiting from that the most, or is it going to be equal?
No, I think it's good. Inactive gameplay affecting active gameplay is the devil, right? So get rid of cloaky camping. Like, people should actively be at their computer. So if you want a cloaky camp, that's great, but be active at your bomber or whatever, your Sino, and be playing the game. Don't just have, 50 alts all over, being able to gather intel and do all this stuff for free, right?
All right. So somebody says something here. Ron stream. Let's see. It's their Deems, I think. He says Ron's streams, plural, are the most interesting EVE content that is available at the moment. Real fights, large fleets, and a lot of good/interesting strategy mechanics. And I do not disagree.
Now, I know you're reading that one and you're ignoring probably 15 bad ones.
I'm just reading the ones that are true.
Okay.
I like that you did an amnesty, but I kind of feel for you because you're going to have to do it all over again. Every one of those guys, it's a criminal. You have to lock them back up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it seemed to me, we'll talk a little bit more about the war here, Ron. Now that Brisc is gone, we can actually talk about the war. No, but the idea that 2 pauses were available to you in that planet, is that a real development? Is that the beginning of a rip of a way into 3 TAC D, a system that's critical for you guys?
Yeah, so that's substantial. And the reason, so I posted the AAR and I was being a little fanciful with it, but the reason that I posted is because someone who I don't know who was trying to devalue it. And the most important thing is that was 6 hours. That was a 6-hour fleet. And when you get around 2 hours, you seriously need to think about docking up, reforming, because it's a long time to ask for people. And we were having serious discussions, like heated discussions about taking, people home and letting them, stand down because it was so long. But the winds just kept coming, right? And we just kept, and we saw them, like stand down, and we were still fighting. So we're like, well, let's push this further then, right? And they had a Fortizar coming out, and they defended that. We started hitting their jammers. They defended that. But then we went back, and getting a POS up, that's like a first step, a crack, in the wall. Getting up a structure would be better. And those structures that we put down, we're throwing down Asbels because they're cheap, and we don't, I give each one a 5% chance of survival, but that's 5% of having now a structure, right, which now has timers, right, and
Yeah.
it extends it.
They're cheap and very wide too, so
Yep.
you have a little bit of strategic capability with the tethering range. But so they've been useful in that way, even though they're meant for building things. They're actually strategic assets as well.
So yeah, it's a significant update, right? And I can tell you that it was like about 5 seconds difference, because they put one up and we put one up, and ours just online before theirs. I mean, it was that heated, right? And it was, at the time, it was like 300 or 400 on our side and 300 or 400, like 300 on their side, and we were zooming around that system, and they were chasing us, and it was insane for 6 hours. And then the next morning, the Reddit warriors, right, was like, oh, there's another fight. I guess they won. Like, you need to shut your mouth. That was 6 hours, man. Like, you shut your mouth.
You got to recognize this.
Yeah. And then the next morning, to their credit, the next morning they formed like 1,500 for that onlining Asbel, because us getting it online would be a huge deal, right? Like 1,500 people don't form for giggles, right? You don't, as leadership, you don't pull that many people in to waste their time. It's because it's important, right? And that shows you the value of us being able to get an Asbel online. Is 1,500 people important, and they don't want that. I wouldn't either, to be honest.
By the way, Big Bill, the boss, reminds us that the PDS, which are point defense systems, on an Asbel has a really nice range. So that's another thing, because those things are like constant damage in a radius around it, and the bigger the structure or the longer, the bigger your damage radius. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Well, the main thing is, right, it makes it really safe to bring capitals into the system and bring fleets into the system, because the PDS can very easily clear dicta bubbles away.
So the Asbel is key, and that's why you saw a big formation from Imperium to keep that Asbel from surviving. And you will probably see that for the following Asbels that are coming. Now,
Yep.
the PAPI side of things is, order up 100 of these Asbels, because one of them's gonna, that's your line of thinking, is we only need to be correct one time. What does that one time look like? What happens if you get an Asbel on? And thank you, Nick Bison, for gifting subs.
Yeah, so for us, it's about shotgunning, right? It's about what can we get down, right? What can we get down? Can we have some time, right? They stood down, so let's put up an Asbel. Let's put up, some passes. Let's do this. Let's do that, and just take advantage of every time that they give us a little bit of leeway, right? Then we're just going to keep pushing it.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. We have predicted here at TIS, when we look at the war, that this is going to be the state of things, I think, for a few weeks. That there's going to be a lot of testing, as you were saying, figuring out reaction speeds. I noted that on both sides, they both said, we must react fast. And I haven't heard that before. I think you pointed out why, because you're so close to each other.
Yeah, and the other kind of development, I guess, would be that Init is now staged out of 3TechD there. So they moved into that Keepstar, so they will be able to react even faster during EU. So it's stepping it up, and I think the thing to look for would be for them pulling out, right, of that system. And when they start moving a lot of stuff out, then you can expect something to be happening very, very soon.
That's when you think they've looked at it, assessed the situation, and said, let's fall back. And you think that'll happen?
Eventually. It eventually will, yeah.
Yeah. All right. There's one question I wish Brisc was still here to answer, and that is the feeling of, and I open this to Sutonia and Caleb, but the feeling of, I don't know if it's feeling of being trapped, because I don't know if you're ever trapped in EVE Online, because you have jump clones and all these other possibilities. But being in such a small space, does that have an effect on players? What do you guys think?
Oh, of course it does, right? Like a lot of goons who normally, I don't know, use ratting to make most of the risk now have to find other income sources. And now these guys are doing abyssal sites in high sec, they're doing high sec mission running, or they might even just put an all in another alliance, right? So
And all of that has already happened, right? That's the point. Yes, 1DQ and that whole constellation is still important to the Imperium, but it is a bit of a stalemate. The real question is what strategy will win the day, right? Ron explains a lot of this with the whole thing with the servers and who locks on grid at the right time, and will they crash, and the chipping away and trying to get something in there to stage from. Um, it's not that important to the current locked in community because they are playing elsewhere or they're playing other games while they're locked in. So it this is why I agreed with Ron that this could go on forever because so many players in EVE Online, especially when you're in the upper echelon, you have plenty of accounts, right? So you can log in one account and still even be guarding the parapet in 1DQ while doing a lot of other stuff on one or two or three accounts while you're doing that. So it's really not that much of a problem.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you think of set piece battles over structures, yeah, you could show up once a week for those. You could show up 3 times a week for those and play other games and do other things. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think we're seeing activity every day. I think you'll start seeing iHub fights, which are not single point fights. They spread out among the constellation. So you got to be all over the place. I just don't know how warfare works at this scale with these group sizes next to each other. What do you think, Ron?
I think it's going to be, taking a sledgehammer to a wall, right? And it's just going to be hitting it over and over. And before too long, they're going to miss, right? And we're going to crack the wall, and the next one, maybe a brick falls out, right? As the defenders, they have to defend every time, right? If they miss once, we'll get an Asbel down or we'll get a POS down. Now, then the follow-ups, they have to hit every one. And if they don't, they miss one, then that Asbel onlines. So, for us,
Can't they just destroy it?
Well, they could, right? So they would have to destroy it within that timer after it's completed the anchor and it's doing the online timer.
Yeah, well, let's
They'd
say it
have to kill
anchors.
then.
Once it anchors,
Now that's a whole new ball game, right? Now because now it starts the timers, right? And then we're talking 5 or 6 days, and we have tethering with PDS in system. That's huge. So those things, it will become untenable for them. They can do it now, but how long? And we'll see, right? But at the end, it's like, of what true value does it have, right? For us, I can tell you how much value it has, right? We've spent, over 50 as a group, 50 trillion in the war to now. We're not going to stop. Like, how ridiculous would that be that we go through all of this for 10 months? Well, during that last constellation, oh well, guys, let's go home.
we did a
No.
great job.
Yeah, golly willikers.
We can go home
can't,
proud.
We can't get them hound dogs out of that corner there.
Well-
So, well, the hell with it.
So you guys aren't giving up and calling it a win, and they're not giving up at all. That's their rhetoric. So this is really like the immovable force. So what is it? Irresistible force meets the immovable object or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love rhetoric. I hope it
and-
just continues forever. Yeah.
And you have to take into account the fact that, as far as I'm being told, there's still actually the possibility of assets being moved in and out from the Imperium. So this brings on the whole thing of, well, if the industry side is still producing stuff and building up the war tools to actually fight, then it's not an effective embargo, and then it's not going to be an easy fight, right? So even if there is a foothold, it's still going to be a really, really tough and long fight because it's still 5 keep stars plus change, right? So this is why again, I'm agreeing with the PAPI side when Willie says 3 to 8 months. Well, that's realistic. If you really insist on finishing this, that's maybe what it's going to take, because there's so many requirements when it comes to failures on the Imperium side that you have to wait for that stupid failure to happen, or that crack in the wall that Ron is talking about. But again, this is really just a patience game, because it should statistically happen at some point.
The same thing happened to us, right? When we were defending Northern Esso and Bastion moved in, you know, and we're going to hold Northern Esso over and over, and then, you know, boom, we missed a timer, right? Boom, miss another timer, and you know, it starts, right? So the same thing happens to everyone. It's not you know, something super, you know, 200 IQ. It's just the consistency of the attacks will wear on the defender, and you'll start missing things, and then you start to consider, is it even valuable to hold it, right? And why don't we pull back? We have much more assets in 1DQ that's much more defendable, and see where it goes from there.
It does kind of look like a boat in water, doesn't it? With first a few droplets coming through, and then spring a little leak, maybe 3 or 4 leaks, and next thing you know, you're sinking, and there's not much you can do about it at that point. Like,
well, without offending anyone, it is more like a Masada defense, right? This is just the Roman military just building that big ramp, and it takes a long time, and until it's finished, it's not finished.
Yeah. Well, all right. You know, I think, and there was something that said, I think it's part of the rhetoric, like you're, I think even Brisc said it. He's not here to counter me, so that's unfair, but that you're not winning a war until you are. And there's that kind of a thing. But I think that we can look
Losers
at this war.
say stuff like that.
I was just going to say.
Just ignore them, man.
I can just say.
Chirp, 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 chirp.
That doesn't mean that when you're watching sports, you're looking at it and saying, like, I can't tell you who's winning because the game's not over yet. Like, you can say, these guys look like they're winning. These guys have momentum. These guys have the right talent in the right spots. Or you can look at a sports game and say, it's going one way. But maybe it can be flipped around, but it's going one way. So I think if we have to look at this war, I think it's pretty obvious.
If you look at just the battles, if you ignore Reddit and you ignore like leadership calls, if you look at just the battles, the Imperium, like the line members and that, they're all fighting hard. Like, and they have turned 300% better. When we were first fighting them in TCAG, I mean, it was almost laughable. I mean, to be honest with you, it was so, you know, we almost felt bad sometimes. And they have made a complete, you know, 300% improvement. And the guys that are fighting, and gals, whatever, are fighting, you know, on these fights and doing these things, and they're doing wonderful stuff, right? Like the fight the other day, the fleet compositions were nice. You know, the fleet makeup, the fleet doing exactly what they were told. There wasn't a lot of straggling. They were doing great. You know, the only reason they lost that the other day was the FCs, right? The FCs were all out of whack on their positioning, but like the members themselves are doing great stuff.
Well, in TCAG, they were, even if they were doing a bad job, they were resisting your entry. Like,
they were. Yeah.
They held you off. So if they were doing a bad job then, and they're a lot better now, this is going to be really tough for you guys.
Yeah, and TCAG as well, right? They had caps, and when we came in, they would drop, you know, 100 carriers, supers, and that sort of thing. They had that advantage because they were on the other side of the gate.
Right.
Same sort of thing right now, right? We come in, they're dropping caps, and I don't blame them. I would too. That's what you do, alliance to alliance warfare.
There is just one little beef that I have with both sides in this war. It's that if you guys are not keeping the destruction numbers way above the TTC money, I find it almost laughable. I will almost start calling this a circus war.
But money isn't equipment. That doesn't mean it doesn't buy equipment.
No, but it still can. The whole thing with raw materials going in and out and being able to source materials, that's not really a problem for any side at the moment. So
I
again,
think
when you're valuing it, it is about ISK. The other thing when we discuss ISK is really about SRP. So it's just, this is a way of valuing things, and I'm just saying that if the destruction numbers are not reaching the TTC cap, it's a fake war. It's basically a sham that's running in the background while everyone is still playing their game.
The TTT is a Tranquility Trade Tower, which makes money off sales inside of HiSec space. That money is divided up between tests, legacy, and some partners, including the Imperium, the Imperium's Goon Swarm. So
that's why I'm claiming that then it becomes a circus gladiatorial thing that's just running in the background that entertains everyone.
Well, I think per month they might get 300, 400 billion, the Imperium. I think the total is, I don't really know because it's not public numbers, and I don't.
I'll say this: the TTT money is not what you guys think.
I think it's like 600-700 billion per month.
I'm just saying it's not as much as you guys think.
Okay,
it's
so
not
maybe it's
that crazy.
Maybe it's less than that.
Like it's.
Do you know how much it is?
It's it's 1 week of this war. The TTT money's gone. Right, 1 week.
The whole TTT money.
Well, from each person that gets money, all of that money would be gone in 1 week.
So the entire pot of Tranquility Trade income in 1 week is gone.
Correct.
Okay. So we can assume people are losing money. It's
nice, it's like unemployment check or something, right? Like
it'll keep you alive.
It's nice,
Yeah.
You can buy some groceries, but it's not paying the rent.
Yeah. You're not buying a PS5.
Exactly.
You got to fight for that. All right. Well, thanks very much, Ron, for coming around, hanging out. Always a pleasure. We should literally just have a fireplace and sit and talk for hours and hours and hours like you do. But if you want to catch Ron in that kind of relaxed scenario, watch his channel, RonUSMC, on Twitch, and subscribe and all that good stuff as well. It's great content, especially if you want to learn about EVE Online. We were talking, Caleb, earlier that I was suggesting, like, well, if we're going to brand this correctly, maybe we should call Talking in Stations like EVE Online Explained. Again, it comes up a lot in some of the meta tags and stuff.
It's a great title. It's a great title, except for the fact that Sutonia pointed out, of course.
Yeah, it's a disease or something. Thanks, Sutonia, for killing that idea. Yeah, but the idea is that if you want to actually see how war is explained, watch Ron's show. If you want to listen to advanced players talk about EVE Online in a way that's understandable for people who aren't advanced, that's what Talking in Stations does pretty well. And Ron actually was part of TIS too at one point.
We should actually do a special if Ron would be willing on EVE Explained, right? Where we try to explain what is the scenarios in 1DQ. How is that little thing actually done? Talking about the different. I know that Ron has actually talked about this already a bit on his stream, right? With the keep stars and with all the other structures and how you need to get a handhold in there and with the iHub fights and all that. What is it really about? When can we see the tide turn?
Who knows? But yeah, get Brisc. Me and Brisc can do it.
Yep.
Okay.
Do a little
Great
special,
show.
yeah, for sure.
Go back and forth. Risk can get very serious and analytical, and he has a great way of calibrating himself for the occasion. Right? He can have a lot of fun, but he also get very serious and stuff. I like having Ron and Brisc on at the same time. They're both media people. Ron's an FC, so that puts him in a different category, but they're still very much explainers of what's going on. So that would be good to see. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks very much. One thing that we wanted to do, I haven't told you guys this, but you may not know, we want to bring that back. Maybe not today, but in case Suetonia or Ron or Caleb have a tip for players, I'll just put that. I'll make space for that. And if not,
Are we doing tip of the week?
yeah, tip of the week. Or if not, do you guys have a, somebody you want to say hello to or something that you were thinking about this week? Anything, any final comments?
So yeah, check out the Anger Games. The final is later tonight, right?
Oh yeah, they've been so entertaining and so many old faces showing up. I do want to stroke Suetonia's ego a little bit. Apparently, he is now the proven most knowledgeable person about EVE Online. So if you have any questions, just go to Suetonia's stream and just ask random questions.
That was never in doubt, actually.
And that's a bit ironic, I guess, that you would say that before my closing statement, which is people who collude in the arenas have no skill. And that's kind of a proven fact. That's science. So
Tonya, did you collude?
That's true, right? I think Billy's in the chat right now, right?
Hey, I don't care, brother. It's all no skill. No skill.
Wow, that's a bad one, Ron. When the last test fight
was
a complete wipe.
It's weak. I don't care who does it. I'll paint them all.
Did somebody collude again, or is this we're talking about Hydra?
It's always colluding, man. It's always.
Oh,
it was ruled not
arena.
illegal, right? So.
Because Manuel, this new arena is for the Capsule Day. It's an
FFA?
18-man FFA.
Yeah, okay.
But what a lot of alliances are doing is they're getting like 7 or 8 of their guys on comms together, and they're all queuing at the same time. So then they have house rules essentially, where they kill all of the other neutral people first, and then they fight it out amongst themselves. So at least one person from their friends win.
That's against the spirit of the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Luckily, this event it's pretty cheap because CSP actually gives you, I think, 18 million ISK for free. You get 9 million ISK the first time you go in, and if you do at least 5,000 damage, which is really easy to do, like as long as you're not in an unfitted ship or you're in like some max tank bullshit thing that doesn't have any guns or something, you can pretty much always do that. So you get 18 million back, and then if you insure your Tech 1 cruiser, and with the rule set, you can only fit meta 4 modules or lower, so there's no Tech 2 modules at all. So it's very easy to make a cruiser fit that's still pretty decent, that makes almost all of its ISK back, even if you can like die and lose.
I gotta say, the Alliance tournament died when collusion kind of entered the picture, I think. So you killed a tremendous tradition with that.
I don't know about that.
Didn't you think? After, I don't know if you were on that team.
89 was the first one, right? Where Outbreak and Hydra.
Were you on that team?
Yeah, I was on the Hydra team, although I didn't actually play in any of those matches. I just did some testing mostly.
Right, you guys practiced together, and then you kind of threw the finals. Don't you think that was the end of the Alliance tournament?
No, because the next one was really successful, and then like the biggest one ever was like in it was like AT13, right?
Might have been. I actually stopped watching it after collusion, but or maybe it was just kind of it became a different beast.
I mean, the collusion was actually worse than before 89 even, because you used to have the group stage thing. So in 88, for example, there were a lot of alliances that were in the same coalition that deliberately threw games, or they chose comps. The way it used to be is that you scored points based on how many ships you killed. So you'd have a group stage where there'll be four teams in a group, and then the 2 teams that score the most points win, and it go through to the next thing, right? And it was based on like the points of ships you killed. So you'd have people who were allied. So I think there was one case where a Circle of 2 and some other, I think Serbian alliance.
Gates, probably free gates, which would have been unreloaded.
Like some people who had a language connection.
Yeah,
they made it so the person who was already losing, they won the match, but they set it out in such a way so that the team that lost got like 90 plus points or something.
Yeah. We're talking about the Alliance tournament for those historic stuff. This was back in 2000. You know, they might have been Noli Segunda actually incorporated some of the free gates, I think, but your guys out of Fountain, and they were unreloaded, I think, before that, and then ended up, I think, ended up in Nali Segunda, and then in C dot, I think, eventually.
I thought the last AT is the one where they colluded. The Vidra and Hydra or whatever, and
No,
wasn't
there was no collusion there. They're different teams. Like the Vidra team is mostly a meme on the Hydra team. It's like a Russian group of like Nick and Noiser.
oh, okay.
There is confusingly Vidra and Hydra do practice together, but
Yeah. Well, the point is that it became.
I mean, the big one was
problem.
1813, right, where the
Yeah.
two team captains got banned, and
Yeah,
and all
that's
that,
one I think
all
I'm
that
thinking
stuff
about.
came out. No, even before that, Ron, there was some collusion. I didn't know about CO2, or even before that. I thought the first collusion was the Outbreak throwing the match at the end, and it was just anticlimactic.
yeah, that was 89. I mean, that was the big like headline collusion. There was like tons of cases of it, like even not necessarily collusion as well, but there was just metagaming within the brackets as well. Like for example, Hydra Reloaded in 88, which was the first tournament we took part in, and we came in second place. We won our first game, and we were really confident that we could win the third game. So, and we were against Agony Unleashed, and we were winning pretty hard against them. But I think Dobbins, who was actually part of the Hydra Reloaded team at the time, calculated that if we the way it worked was like the winner of one group would go into a different part of the bracket, and the second place would go into a different part of the bracket. And I think Gobbins calculated that if we actually lost the match, we threw it deliberately to them so that they would win the group and we would be second place in the group and still go through. We wouldn't have to play Pandemic Legion or Darkside until the final, and those were the only two real like super strong teams. I mean, there was like maybe one other good team. So that kind of stuff was always happening.
So throw the match so you get the easier route to the finals.
Yeah, because like if we threw the match there and came second place in the group, and PL and Darkside won their brackets, which they already were at that point. I think we were actually the last group as well, so we played last, so we kind of saw.
All right. So how did it work out? You have to finish it. Did it?
They won.
We came in second place because
nice.
CSP Posse is a mean bully and spy bullied our team.
But to be fair, right? You could argue that kind of metagaming and shenanigan is a feature, right?
Strategic.
It's exactly what happens in real life sports. So I don't necessarily see that as bad or abusive, as long as it's not proper cheating, like proper match fixing.
I mean, there's some really wild AT stuff that used to happen on the Singularity and Duality as well, when testing wasn't like enforced and like on Thunderdome.
Yeah, used to
spying and all that stuff, right?
Well, they used to go onto the test server and then crawl into a wormhole, and that's where they would practice, just to really make sure nobody was watching them. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's what Hydra did, but there's like also like loads of kind of like wild spying stuff. Like one thing you can do, if you don't know how Sissy works, there's NPC buy-orders that are 100 ISK. But what you can do is you can buy out the NPC buy-order and then re-put it up your own one at 100 ISK, and hopefully they don't notice, because I think the NPC buy-orders always have like 365 days. So you can tell which ones are NPC sell orders and which ones are player sell orders by looking at it. But if people just buy something from the market hurriedly, then they buy it from you, and then you can see like on your market history like which modules they're using, which ships they're using.
Oh my
and
god!
We definitely use that against a bunch of teams.
Oh my god, that's amazing,
dude. The min-maxing, I swear to God, man, like
that's
oh Jesus,
some deep strategy.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything we learned was from PL doing it to us. CSP Fozzy spying on us in '88 was basically what caused us to slam our head in the wall and live in a wormhole for practice in a wormhole, and it was so bad back then.
Yeah. Well, now, Suetonia, you got me all confused, because I think of this collusion stuff as very bad, and now I'm starting to look at it as just an extension of strategy, and now there's some gray area.
No, it's not. It's colluding. It's
Thanks, Ron. I need some moral
is you're talking
purity
to someone and you're going into the match supposedly as opponents, but you're really friends. That's colluding, and it's bad. Period.
It does go
There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
The spirit of things, for sure. All right. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Caleb, and thank you, Satonia, for coming around, and Brisc, who had to leave early. Also, thanks to McLeod for trying to get the stream back up. Unfortunately, it went down in England. Feel bad for him. So we brought it back up here in California, and Talking in Stations was able to do a show today. So thanks to you guys like Nick Bison, who gave out some memberships to other people. It was very generous of him. And if you guys want to subscribe here, or you can go to patreon.com/Matterall, or now, if you watch this on YouTube, we have YouTube membership. So you can find all those ways to support Talking in Stations that brings you the show, even when things rain in one country or another. All right. Thanks, guys, very much for showing up. We will see you next time on Talking in Stations.